Good evening. It's yet another evening, of course, Wednesday night. A time like this, you know, it's always a front bench live. And tonight, we're going down with stories. And of course, tonight, we want to switch gears a little bit from what we discussed last week and touch a little bit on politics. There are so many things happening in the country. And of course, we are seeing a lot of political gimmicks in the nation. And we just want to dissect that really quick. And tonight, it's going to be a discussion unusual, just to put some facts into place. With me in studio is former MP, Honorable Robert Mutua is in studio, and we just want to talk about this really good. It's going to be interesting because it's politics 101. Keep your tweets coming at Ongara Samson 1 at Incross Television. The hashtag is always Frontbench Live, and we'd like to sample some of your feedback on the bench, and we just want to know how you feel about the show, and especially the politics around. Things are getting heated a little bit, and of course, remember, the government as well as an ultimatum to respond on from the opposition. The 20th of March is the day, and the Azimio, and of course the Azimio coalition is traversing the nation, rallying people to move out actually to demonstrate. Is going to be a discussion as unusual, like I said. And of course, let me bring my guest into this discussion so that, you know, we don't waste a lot of time, and we just want to see this in about 30 minutes. Honorable, there is a lot of political gimmicks in the country. I just want us to be as factual and as objective as we can with this particular discussion and just try to dissect this. It has been a long time since we have a sit down, I think several years now, but it's good to see you on the bench, and I just want us to pick this really quick. You know, one of the things, let's even begin with the demonstration that, you know, the Azimio coalition is trying to rally. What do you take of all this? What do you take of it?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the bench, and I'm grateful that you have continued the discussion on the state of the nation. One of the things that I want to say is that the political gimmicks that are going on are not new. They have always been there in this country. The only thing that I do not seem to like is the level of threats that are being given by both sides. You see Kidiki threatening, you see Raila threatening. We cannot lead the country through threats. We'd like to have creative criticism, and criticism based on ideas and based on creativity, but not just a question of personal feelings about, I don't want you there, I want to be there. That is not what is got to have this country. The demonstrations are important because they are awakening, or they are drawing the attention of the government to the level of public dissatisfaction. If people were satisfied, they would not go join the demonstrations. But again, the same token, the demonstrations are not being going in the right direction, because when you say you like to remove the current system and replace it, you even talk about you have your own militia. That is not right for the country. The country would like to see, you know, politics based on issues. And the issues are the people require income, the people need food. Currently, one of the biggest needs of this country is feeding the nation. Mm-hmm.
Let me cut you really short on your statement. We are going to continue with that particular discussion. And you've talked about something a little bit sensitive, talking about, you know, the country is being led by threats. The other party is threatening, the other party is threatening. And as you know, as someone who is experienced in politics, you've been a member of parliament. And of course, you know, what do you think this means to, you know, to the public, the general, the mwananchi as well?
You see, once you issue a political threat, there are those who understand that is really politics, but there are others that feel like they should be implemented. So you realize that you are whipping some people towards the wrong direction, and particularly for the people that feel they are hopeless in life. Because there are so many people that don't know how they are going to survive. So they will take it beyond what you intended to say. So what I'm saying is, we have one good thing that has happened over the years, and that is the church for the first time is very interested in the politics of this country and the running and the governance of the nation. So you see bishops aligned to the Azimio coalition. You see bishops aligned to the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And my feeling is that these men of the cloth, these leaders who are godly leaders, their work now should be regulating the temperature, so that we have a competition of ideas and not competition of real fight, because we don't want lives to be lost. All that it takes is one person to act irresponsibly. If somebody, one particular individual acts irresponsibly, then you will find chaos in the country. But so far, I'm grateful that even the huge demonstrations have been very peaceful. The government has also been very disciplined. We want to see that discipline continue, but we also want to see a better engagement in terms of giving alternatives. Because really, opposition is really a potential alternative government. So we like to hear alternative ways of doing things rather than just get away. It is very easy to criticize, but very difficult to produce a solution.
You are in the 10th or 11th parliament. 11th parliament, and that was one of the parliaments that was, overheated by debates and, a lot of interest being kicked around here and there, just, for the interest of people. And we are also in a point whereby right now, the opposition also trying to, push the government on some of their agendas that, they feel is not being taken care of. One of them is high cost of living. Let's talk about this.
Well, one of the things we must agree is that politics is about personal interests. But those personal interests are always wrapped in a terminology called for the people. So you find somebody saying, I'm doing this for the people. But behind that people, there is also personal interests. Now, let us look at the economy and the cost of living globally. During the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, all the economies almost came to a standstill. Kenya was not an exception. So without appearing like defending the government, I am sure the government is trying to pick up and to awaken the economy that has already grinded to a standstill. Just like any other country, all the countries globally are trying hard to make sure that their economies rise or wake up faster than the other economies. And I'm sure this is also the case in Kenya. The cost of living is very high, particularly the cost of fuel. Yesterday I traveled from Nanyuki to Ukambani, and I was amazed. I consumed about 19,000 of fuel. That's quite very high. But you see, we cannot just hope things are going to be better. All of us, we have to collaboratively work together towards building a better country by improving the management of our economy, improving the delivery of our services, and improving the way we even prioritize the priorities. We cannot get our priorities wrong and expect the economy to come right. So if the opposition begins to reason and begins to argue around the management and the governance of the economy, I'll be very happy.
Stick around there for a minute and let me ask you this, still talking about high cost of living. And of course, we are all aware of this, and it's something that didn't start today. Yeah. It started like way back, and by the the previous government, towards the end of the previous government, and the Azimio was part of that government in court, and they never talked about high cost of living, and they never advocated for anything. Are they for real this time around?
You cannot criticize yourself. That time they were part and parcel of the government, and therefore their work was to defend their position. Now that they are not in the government, they are on the opposite side, they would like to blame every failure on those who are in the government.
Like to blame every failure. Do you think this is healthy for common mwananchi?
You know, it's not healthy for common mwananchi, but this is a way politics all over the world work. If you are the one on the driver's seat and we feel we are uncomfortable, we don't blame the car, we blame the driver. So this is quite important for us to realize that that is the way the governments work all over. That you cannot praise your opposition, your competitor. But what I'm trying to say is, I would like to see them not only say you are responsible, but also them telling them what they are not doing and what they should do. That is where the difficulty is. For me, anybody can criticize, anybody can see the things that are going wrong, but not anybody, not everybody can correct the direction, can change the direction. So for me, the Azimium team is right when they talk about the high cost of living. But I don't think they're right when they keep reminding us that the elections were stolen. Because I tend to believe the driving force is not the high cost of living. The driving force is they feel they should be the one that are in the State House.
Now, let's still stick around on this. And of course, you know, when you talk about, you know, not blaming the car, but the driver, and of course, I want to ask you, you know, a very sensitive question. Suppose the opposition, the previous government had opposition that we are trying to see in the beginning of this government. What did you take of the previous government? It
would have, things Kenya would have developed. You remember one time in another television, you know, kind of setting, I said the worst that happened in Kenya was the handshake. Because the handshake killed the oversight of the government. The previous regime was a regime that had no oversight. Because the team that was supposed to be oversighting the government agreed with the government, went to bed with the government. So it was not able to see the wrongs and the misdeeds of the government because they were part and a parcel of that system. The complication we are having here is the driver of the opposition that time is still the driver of the opposition today. And therefore is taking a double standards. That time he could overlook the misdeeds of the government. This time he doesn't want to overlook the misdeeds of the government. So we begin to question how genuine and whether it is really fight for the people or fight for personal gain.
Years back, we had a discussion, of course, and we talk about the handshake, what maybe the handshake could have done. And of course, your resentments were that was the bad decision. And from where things are leading to. And of course, we've seen a lot of, you know, the Azimio are trying to rally people behind them to, you know, just come out to demonstrate on high cost of living. And we've talked about that, and we are, you know, we try to understand that, you know, sometimes maybe the agenda is kind of different. What exactly do you see of them?
One of the things that I am happy about is the force of the opposition in terms of playing their oversight of the government. I wish that can continue. The methodology, I might not agree with the methodology being used for the oversighting. That is the mass demonstrations. Because that mass demonstrations, as much as it is a right in our constitution, it is a very expensive right to implement. Because every time there is those demonstrations, production comes to a standstill. And this country now requires a lot of productive hours. So we are consuming a lot of time in non-productive activity. And I am sure the opposition has got machinery of oversighting the government without interrupting the normal lifestyle of the Kenyans. Because those Kenyans that are small earners, that have small businesses, in the day of demonstration, their business is closed. That is not positive. So what I'm saying is, why can't we have a politics of an oversight that takes care of the people's way of using their time, but they do their work, because this is actually targeting the government. It's not targeting the common mwananchi. It is not the common mwananchi who can bring down the cost of living. It is the government. And the government is composed of both the opposition and the executive. So to me, I feel like this now has been done enough. The opposition should now change the tactic and begin to articulate and begin to engage the responsible people without affecting the lifestyle of the common man.
And do you think maybe approaching it from the parliament would
Yes,
really work?
That is what.
Considering the aspect that, now the Kenya Kwanza has the majority, and for the past, you've been to, parliament, and sometimes how bills are being passed and how people sometimes debate. They debate on numbers, and sometimes, you realize that, people also have interest, just like you said, and they might, jump the boat because something is offered.
One of the things that I don't like to do is to generalize. Even in the parliament, there are people that are principled. There are people that are not out for sale. But there are also a few others who are out for money. So what we are saying is this country is going to be corrected by all of us becoming more and more principled, so that we do not look like we are goods in the market to be bought. So to me, I feel the parliament can still play a major role. And according to our constitution, it is actually the parliament that is supposed to oversight the government, the executive, because themselves, they are able to even summon the people that are doing the wrong things. So to me, I don't want us to think that our parliament is toothless. It is not toothless. It can still bite. But what I am saying is the way we are using public participation in the things that we are doing is wasting a lot of manpower, man hours time, a lot of productive time. And therefore, we need to look at that, how we are going to do that. The second thing is the way the government is reacting or responding to the demands being made by the opposition. Not all demands that they're making are useless. There are some that are very sensible. And the public would like to be informed on what is the government doing to bring down the cost of living. Let them have a way of communicating on a weekly basis on the measures that the government is taking to cushion the lives of the common mwananchi. Because this is a national government. And therefore, all its actions are supposed to be geared towards benefiting the common mwananchi.
I want us to talk about a few people specifically, because before we trickle this conversation down to, looking at what Azimio is yet to do and maybe if they're going to achieve something. Let's talk about these people. The man from East, and of course that is Kalonzo Musyoka, and also the man from the South, the former Interior CS, Fred Matiang'i, and also, there are people who have been, making headlines for some apparent reasons. And, we just saw what happened in the last week, we saw what happened to the former CS, Interior CS, Fred Matiang'i, and also what happened to Kalonzo, What do you take of all this? Is it a fight? What do you take of all this?
If you allow me, I will not go to those personalities, because I don't support any of the things that they do. That's my comment.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And you have a right to reserve your comments on that. And let's just quickly jump onto, the Azimio. We've talked about this, and of course, it's something that we've addressed. And ultimately, there are people who feel like, the Azimio are trying to, push their way to the government for the handshake. Do you see something like that coming? And if it happens, what would be the eventuality? Just like we dissected the other one, and we realized you predicted that it's going to be the worst decision ever. And of course, we saw the repercussions. One
of the things that which I would wish it would not happen, but it's supposed it happens, if the Azimio get to a handshake with the Kenya Kwanza, that will finish this country. Why? The people that are in Kenya Kwanza are relatively very strong. In the last government, the people that were strong was the president and the deputy president. All the other people were a little bit passive. But in the current government, we have people that are very aggressive. And therefore they need an equally aggressive oversight team. So for the Azimio to have an handshake with the Kenya Kwanza is actually doing injustice to the public. Because the public is now desperate. And we are moving from a very desperate situation, trying to move up. And when you are moving from a desperate situation, then you require people that are very clear, people that are very focused, people that are very transparent, people that are very accountable. And that transparency, level of transparency and accountability can only be achieved in the midst of a very strong opposition. So to me, I don't advocate for the handshake. I would tell them, don't go that way. If you go that way, you are actually doing injustice to Kenya. The Kenyans want to see a strong opposition. Mm-hmm. Before the handshake, every little thing that was being done that was not right was becoming news the following morning. Immediately after the handshake, there were no revelations about what was going on beyond the scenes. So it was left to the media to keep on guessing and try to sourcing to see whether they can tell us what is happening to the, to the issue about the COVID funds. You see, if there was no handshake, we would have known exactly what happened to the COVID grants. But now, we are still guessing. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the people were supposed to have revealed what the government was doing. They were part of the government. Mm-hmm. So we don't want a repeat of that.
Yeah. So now, I think the discussion is even getting more interesting when we talk about this, especially now what we are, the predictions that we are having, if maybe the Azimio would probably opt for handshake. And, also looking at the government, from this side, we are also seeing, there are people who are also trying to stand on their position that, this is not going to happen, especially now the Azimio has given, the government an ultimatum of 20th. There will be, mass demonstration. Do you think this mass demonstration would probably bring an impact, or the government will also still be adamant? What do you foresee?
If you remember when we are under Section 2A of the Constitution in Kenya, the one-party state,
yeah,
the president at that time was very firm that they were not going to reverse to multi-partyism. The pressure continued mounting on him. And it came as a surprise that morning when they went to Kasarani. And he says, sasa naktasema Section 2A iondolewe. And everybody was like in a confusion. We didn't know what is next. So what I'm saying is, in politics, all things are possible. Anything can happen. But what I'm trying to say is my personal position, is that the government should not be saying we resist, and then we agree. No. That should be not the case. Let us not kill democracy in this country. And there can never be democracy when there is no opposition. Democracy works better when there is an opposition that is watching the doings of the executive. And we are aspiring to have a working democracy. The only thing that I'm just not very sure of is about this period under which this mass demonstration should take. Because if it takes too long and it continues forever, then it's not healthy for the country. But when it has happened once in a while to draw the attention of the government, that is growing dissatisfaction, then that is good enough. And I believe the Kenya Kwanza government has already taken note of the numbers that are attending the mass demonstrations. And therefore, the government should now undertake to address some of the issues that are being raised. Not all of them. Some of them are not issues. Some of them are cover-ups. But there are in those many words, there are few points that require attention.
Some of the rallies, some of the demonstrations have been going on in the past week, and we've witnessed demonstrations in Kisumu that we expected a good number of turnout. We saw like the rally in Migori, which had several attendants, but again from how they were addressing, the people and whatever the agenda that they had. Do you feel that was the right way to go, especially what they did in Migori, the Azimio?
No. You see, the speech is as important as the numbers. If the numbers come, normally they excite politicians. But people should not be seen to be causing demonstrations as a forum to castigate the government for no reason. What we need now is a campaign for delivery of services. Nothing else. Because the current system is supposed to deliver services. So I think the only oversight that makes sense at the moment is the oversight that is geared towards the way they are not delivering, or the way they are delivering the wrong way. That is what I want to hear. But when we have something and all what is there is just a thumping and a boasting, then that is not for us. You see, the Kenyans, and I'm talking this now as neutral as possible, we do not think, and I do not believe, that testing from any corner, any of the corners, is good for Kenya. It isn't.
Now, the Azimio actually believes, before we even get there, we saw demonstration in Kiambu, one of the regions that, the Kenya Kwanza believed that voted the government almost 90%. And they just went out and demonstrated saying, we want it out. What do you take of that?
What did they want out?
Like they're also complaining about high cost of living, and then they feel the government they voted in is not functional as they expected.
But everybody in this country is feeling the pinch of the high cost of living. Even if you go to Ukambani talking about high cost of living, I'll be there. Everybody feels the high cost of living. The question is, how do we fix it? And that is where the government now should ban midnight oil, trying to figure out how to bring and control the high cost of living. Because it's not essentially it's not essentially the mistakes of this current government that has brought the cost of living high. It was done by other factors, some of them beyond their control. But we must all think together and come up with strategies to do that. But the driver of that vehicle is the current government. Whereas I'm in my little corner, I'm supposed to do whatever I can do to make sure I earn my living. The environment must be right. The environment must be conducive. And it's the work of the government to create conducive work environment so that the people of Kenya can be able to generate resources and profits that can bring down the cost of living. So this is where they are, and this is what we want to see. So I would not like to see the government getting it very easy because everybody is quiet. No, that noise is important.
Thank you.
It keeps the government awake.
Thank you. As we wind up because of time, in just one word, I want to ask you a very final question. The Azimio coalition also believes that they won the election and just one man, overturned the people's will. What is your stand on this?
I don't agree with that.
Thank you very much. That's where we wind up Front Bench Live tonight. Of course, we've had a very wonderful discussion with the Honorable Mutua on the bench. And of course, this is what you expect on the bench every Wednesday night. A time like this, we'll be going deep to bringing you stories that matters to you every single time. Keep tweeting at Ongara Samson 1 at Incross TV. The hashtag is Politics 101. What a time, what a day. Good night. God bless.